of the COTE conference in 2016. I do apologize on behalf of the planning committee for the fact that we are running behind schedule, and I thank you for bearing with us as we try to make up some time this afternoon. We're trying to actually still finish by no later than 4 p.m., so I do apologize again. This afternoon, session 2 is titled Education and Human Resource Development. And, well, I must acknowledge the presence of Mr. Franklin as well this afternoon. And I know you're pretty much looking forward to hear about this topic since it's something you've studied and written on extensively. So thank you again as we continue to honor you and your work that you've done in the past. So this evening's panel, we have on my immediate left, that would be starting on my immediate left, it would be Dr. Berverly-Anne Carter, who is actually the director of the Center for Learning Language here at the University of the West Indies. And the topic she will be presenting is on two-legged dictionaries and other insights from the Language and Competitiveness Project. Followed by Dr. Henry Bailey. The paper is being co-authored by Balraj Kistow. The title of that paper is Education, Diversification, and Development Challenges for Trinidad and Tobago, Insights from a Study that Combines Data from the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor Database and the Global Competitiveness Report of the World Economic Forum for Trinidad and Tobago. And the final paper, which will be presented by Dr. Hussain, co-authored by Drs. Tiwari and Conrad, is titled The Elements of the Design of an Income Contingent Loan for a Small Petroleum Exporting but Resource Depleting Economy. So these are the three papers that would be presented in that order. Now, I would ask the panelists, in the interest of time management, if we can stick to presentations no more than 10 minutes. We will have an indicator to your right here in the front row as to how much time you have left of that 10 minutes. I must mention that Dr. Bailey has lectured in economics as a full-time lecturer at the faculty of Arthur Luck Jack Graduate School of Business since 2011, and our own Dr. Hossain is a senior lecturer here at the University of the West Indies. Now, again, 10 minutes would be, each presentation will be allowed, each panelist of the panelists would be allowed 10 minutes, and then we would have approximately 10 minutes of questions to be fielded from the audience as we hear some of your interpretations of the discussions as we move forward through the afternoon. So again, thank you and welcome to this afternoon's proceedings, and I would now hand you over to Dr. Berverly-Anne Carter.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am a language specialist, and of course, there's some people wondering what are language people doing in a conference on the economy. I propose to tell you that in my presentation. The project I'm going right in because we have 10 minutes, so I can't do too much background and why and how and stuff. I'm going right into the what. The project, Language and Competitiveness, aim to show the links which exist between foreign languages and competitiveness, and whether such links exist in Trinidad and Tobago, drawing on the research, international research, what was the state of the art in Trinidad and Tobago. As you would have heard in some of the discussions this morning, we are a data poor society. And this is the same in the case of my field, where you don't find the data. You don't find primary data to inform the project. For example, not in this project, but one that would be readily apparent to you. One of the projects involved talking to people who were speakers of languages other than English, therefore Spanish speakers, French speakers, and so on. Now, normally what happens in a society is that when you collect census data, you gather that information, so that at the end of your census, you know how many French speakers, how many Spanish speakers, how many speakers there are of Baja, Indonesian, etc. We don't collect those data in the Caribbean, in the English-speaking Caribbean. Okay, so the project had us go into uncharted territory because there were no primary data. The project consisted of 5 studies: trading with China, Spanish-English bilingual children, French language and culture in the workplace, a language audit of speakers, and boosting economic competitiveness. So I'm talking about the 5th study, which is the most obvious one you would think in terms of competitiveness. But if you would take, for example, the study we did on Spanish, English bilingual children, the research says that bilingualism is something which has to be cultivated. So that even if you have a child, as we have many children now, born into parents, into families where one parent speaks Spanish, one speaks English, if that is not fostered and nurtured and strengthened at the school level, you can have a Spanish speaker who ends up being a potential bilingual speaker whose Spanish ends up being pretty much at the level of anyone starting Spanish in Form 1. It can be that bad, okay? Trading with China, we wanted to know who are the people trading with China. Is it your excellent trading company for obvious reasons? Other companies trading? What are the challenges they face? So these were the sort of issues we wanted to get to, because all of that has an impact on competitiveness. But the project this afternoon I'll discuss, boosting economic competitiveness through the adoption of a language management strategy. Okay, so this is the information sheet we gave to the persons I interviewed. We are focused on language and cultural practices of small and medium enterprises, because the research shows that is where you can really make a difference from the point of a language strategy. And we wanted to know whether they had a formal language strategy, what is referred to as an international communication strategy. What happened in their individual companies? The research in the UK and the EU shows that if you do adopt a formal language management strategy, it boosts economic competitiveness significantly. The linguists in the UK talk about a vicious circle of monolingualism. That's where we are as well. That's where many English-speaking countries are. Because if people don't use foreign languages, people don't understand the need for foreign languages, there's less foreign language learning, and it limits you. In terms of competitiveness, it means that you're not going to explore as much as you should foreign markets, because foreign in the sense of foreign markets speaking languages other than English, because you're naturally going to go to places where you speak the language of the people, and that limits your horizons, okay? The economists in the UK have quantified it. We're talking about a loss of 21 billion pounds annually, because the British are sticking to their traditional markets where they can use English as the language of communication. Ooh, 5 minutes. Okay, so I think I would go straight into key insights. So we talked to people, and these are the kinds of things they said. Well, what we have done is, in order to access these places, you have to find somebody over there who can speak English, because of course you can't speak Spanish, so therefore you can speak English. So if you're fortunate to find a Miss X who lived in Trinidad to the extent that she sounds Trinidadian, well, great for you. Similarly, company B said, well, we trade with China, and we have someone there in China who speaks English, obviously. You're not speaking Mandarin. And, we have worked out a strategy. We have worked out a technique for communicating. I keep it very simple so that person can understand my English. This is interesting. It's nice if somebody could call the office from the DR and the telephone operator could answer in Spanish. Is that possible? Well, no, not really. Here's what happens. We generally don't get major calls like that. And if we do, we would take the information and have, for example, Miss X in the DR contact them in Spanish. Okay, so you have to go to Miss X in the DR to make that contact. And how does it happen? Sometimes we call her on her cell phone and we do a three-way call. So she is on the road in the DR, and she'll have to pull aside for 15 minutes to translate for us. That's where we are. Okay. So you're trying to get at what is happening in companies and how are they using foreign languages. Some companies do have in-house bilingual staff. Yes, we have people who speak Spanish and English, French and English, even Mandarin and English. in the case of languages like French and Spanish, very often either they're relying on people who are bilingual or they are using people who would have studied at UE and who have competence in the language. And when you try to find out the attitude of the people in the business, because you know that attitude is going to permeate the business culture, are they sensitive? Well, yes, they are. They know they should learn a language because they know it's important, and you try to figure out how does that affect the business culture. One person saying from company B, it really goes back to the schools. The schools need to enforce foreign languages. I went to a school where it was enforced. You had to do it. You had to do it, no two ways about it. And at Form 4 or 5, you either choose one, and you may even do two. But that's not the kind of practice, that's not the policy anymore in a number of schools. All right, what I'm going to do is get right to, 2 minutes. What we know in the field is that you look at what people do. Language management techniques, possible techniques, employing interpreters, adapting your website to foreign markets, doing culture training, having staff with language skills, all those things. So in these two companies I present here, they do many of those things, but the way in which they do them is in an ad hoc way. The whole point of a language management strategy is that you begin at the policy level. It's the planned adoption of a range of techniques. So it's fine to do the techniques, but of course it's more effective if your approach is strategic. And this is what we tried to figure out, whether companies were doing things with foreign languages. Yes, they are, but they don't have a strategic focus. It's kind of ad hoc after the fact, you know, we want to go there and perhaps it wouldn't be bad to have someone who speaks a foreign language. The companies understand why, especially if you want to grow regionally, because there is only so much business Trinidad could give you at any point in time. We have an objective, and our objective is to roll out our product in Latin markets. Therefore, we understand why we need languages. I'll end here. This is a criticism coming out of one of the managers in one of the companies, and pertinent to our discussion on diversification. The oil minister in Dubai, when you interview them, you say, we figure we have 23 years of oil. What do we do after that? Just diversify? The only country in the world not diversifying is Trinidad. They say, do so and so and so. We do the exact opposite. Okay? So this is the attitude, this is the experience of one owner of a very successful company towards the whole diversification thrust. Our interest in the project was in looking at what was happening on the ground, actually collecting data from companies who were using languages, how they were using languages, and trying to make the case that it's not good to have an ad hoc approach to using languages in your business, that there is research, there are data showing that you can boost your competitiveness if you have a language management strategy. Thank you.